The luxury auto expo pulsed with flashing lights and expensive promises as cameras drifted across polished chrome and flawless smiles. And at the center of it all stood Adrian Vale beside his so-called masterpiece, a midnight black hypercar wrapped in carbon fiber and arrogance, its engine snarling on cue while influencers gasped and investors nodded as if wealth itself had just spoken. Yet at the far edge of the crowd, Lena watched in silence, her eyes narrowing not in envy but recognition, because she had grown up in a garage where engines told the truth even when people didn't. And the moment Adrian revved the car again, something felt wrong. The sound too sharp, then hollow, like a voice pretending to be deeper than it was. And her chest tightened as memories of her father's lessons surfaced. Listen before you look, feel before you judge. While Adrian boasted about rare imports, secret modifications, and a price tag meant to silence doubt, laughing as he dismissed ordinary mechanics who wouldn't understand elite engineering, a careless insult that landed like a spark on dry fuel, because Lena's father was a mechanic who had spent decades fixing what others broke, and without planning it, her hand rose, the crowd turning as if pulled by gravity, Adrian's smile widening with mock curiosity when he saw her simple clothes and oil-marked fingers, asking who she was, as though the answer could already disqualify her. And Lena stepped forward, heart pounding but voice steady, saying the car wasn't what he claimed, that the engine note didn't match the body, that the chassis welds were aftermarket and rushed, that the exhaust tuning was hiding imbalance, murmurs rippling through the audience as phones tilted toward her. Adrian laughing too loudly and calling it ignorance until she pointed out the misplaced VIN bracket and the uneven heat, discoloration near the mounts, details invisible to admirers, but screaming to anyone who had ever rebuilt a damaged shell. The air shifting as Adrian's confidence faltered for half a second, long enough for doubt to take root, security edging closer while the crowd leaned in, hungry now not for luxury but for truth. Lena asking calmly for the rear panel to be opened, a simple request that froze Adrian in place, his hesitation louder than any accusation. Because in that silence, everyone understood something was about to be exposed, and Lena realized that no matter what happened next, the shine had already cracked, the silence stretched until it became unbearable. Cameras hovering like predators as Adrian's confident posture collapsed into stiffness, his jaw tightening while the crowd waited for movement that didn't come. And in that hesitation, Lena saw exactly what her father had taught her to recognize, the moment when a machine's lie could no longer be protected by noise or polish, until a voice from the audience demanded the panel be opened and another joined. Pressure building like heat in an engine pushed too far, forcing Adrian to gesture sharply to his assistant, the rear panel lifting with a hydraulic sigh that exposed the truth in raw metal and mismatched parts. Mechanics in the crowd reacting instantly with sharp inhales as their trained eyes caught the cheap mounts, the reused bolts, the serial numbers that didn't belong together. Whispers turning into open disbelief while Lena spoke softly, explaining how the shell had once been damaged, how the engine was a downgraded rebuild, dressed to imitate power it didn't possess, each sentence landing heavier than shouting ever could. Adrian's face flushing as he tried to laugh it off, then snapping that people only cared about image, a confession disguised as defiance. And that was when Lena mentioned her father again, not as a weapon but as a truth, saying he fixed ambulances, buses and family cars, machines people trusted with their lives, and that honesty mattered more than status. Applause erupting as sponsors quietly stepped back and security stopped advancing. Adrian realizing too late that his reaction was being recorded more closely than the car itself. Fear replacing arrogance as the story escaped his control and surged. Online within hours, the clip of Lena dismantling a millionaire's illusion, spreading faster than any marketing campaign. Interviews following not for Adrian but for the mechanic's daughter who had spoken, without cruelty or ego, explaining that machines don't lie and that respect is earned. While Adrian's brand crumbled, under scrutiny and Lena's future opened unexpectedly, her father watching from his small garage in silence, pride softening his worn face as he saw the truth he had lived by finally echoed to the world, proving that luxury can be manufactured but integrity cannot. Days after the exposé, the world was still echoing with Lena's calm voice and Adrian's unraveling expression. But away from headlines and screens, the real consequences were unfolding quietly. Regulators requesting documents, former partners distancing themselves, and buyers demanding refunds as the illusion collapsed piece by piece. While Lena returned to her father's garage where the air smelled of oil and honesty, helping him tighten bolts and diagnose engines just as she always had. Only now customers recognized her, not as a viral sensation but as someone who understood machines and truth in equal measure. Journalists arriving with questions, she answered simply, explaining that she hadn't wanted fame or revenge, only fairness. And that moment of courage slowly reshaped her life as offers came from engineering, schools and ethical manufacturers who valued skill over spectacle. While Adrian, stripped of applause and attention, faced empty showrooms and contracts dissolved by fine print he had once ignored. His anger giving way to silence as he realized it. Wasn't exposure that ruined him, but his own reaction when confronted with truth. And months later at a modest auto safety conference, Lena stood not as an accuser, but as a speaker, talking about transparency, responsibility, and respect for craftsmanship. Her father watching from the back of the room with grease still on his hands, knowing that what he had taught her in a small garage had traveled farther than any luxury brand ever could, leaving behind a lesson that lingered long after the noise faded. That honesty may not shine as brightly at first, but it endures when everything else peels away. Time moved forward, and the noise eventually faded, but the shift it created remained, as Lena found herself working alongside engineers who spoke less about profit and more about purpose, learning that true innovation didn't need exaggeration to be impressive. While her father's garage became a quiet symbol of everything, Adrian's spectacle was not a place where broken things were restored, honestly, and promises were kept, without cameras. And when Lena occasionally saw the old video resurface online, she noticed something new in Adrian's face that others had missed before, not just embarrassment but regret. The expression of someone who had mistaken applause for respect. And though she never spoke to him, again she understood that moment had changed them both in different ways, one losing an image he never truly owned, and the other gaining a future built on truth. And as Lena continued her work, she carried the lesson forward, teaching younger apprentices to listen closely, to question confidently, and to never underestimate the power of knowledge spoken calmly, because she had learned that day that integrity doesn't need volume to be heard. It only needs courage to stand still when the world is watching.